about an earthworm. But before that, I will give you some brief description about an earthworm. So earthworm or nightcrawler is a part of the phylum Annelida, and it is a terrestrial invertebrate that belongs to the order Opisthophora. They exhibit tube within tube body plan and externally segmented with corresponding internal segmentation. And they have usually setae on all segments. As an invertebrates, they lack a true skeleton, but they maintain their structure with a fluid-filled xylem chambers that function as a hydrostatic skeleton. They occur worldwide where soil, water, and temperature allows. An earthworm can eat up to 1/3 its body weight on a day. They are commonly found on soil. They are a source of food for numerous animals such as birds, rats, and toads, and are frequently used in residential composting and as bait in commercial and recreational fishing. They are also hermaphroditic, but they do not self-fertilize. Earthworms are vital to soil health because they transport nutrients and minerals from below to the surface via their waste, and their tunnels aerate the ground. So as we dissect the earthworm today, as is the earthworm, we will observe the internal and external structures, as well as we can also see the different developed organ systems as well as the hollow body cavity. So let's start. So first, we are going to observe and determine the different parts of the external anatomy of the earthworm. So this is our model for today. Let's observe first the color of this earthworm. The color of this earthworm is a red brownish. You can see it? Can you see it? A red brownish. Right here is the anterior part of the earthworm, and right here is posterior part of the earthworm. So there is a smooth band which almost encircles the worm. This is what you call the clitellum right here. This is the clitellum. It secretes mucus for reproductive purposes. The clitellum is always closest to the front end or anterior end of the earthworm. Right here on the anterior part, where you can see the mouth as well as the prostomium, it is a flap at the anterior end of the earthworm. You can see a hole, small hole right here. And in the posterior side or posterior end, we can locate the anus right here. So as we feel the body of this earthworm, we can feel a bristles. This is what you call setae. It helps the earthworm for locomotion. So the setae and the break in the clitellum indicate the ventral side. So as you can see, there is two pores right here. This is what you call the nephridial pores. So observe this one. The top is what you call the dorsal. The dorsal side is darker than the ventral side of the earthworm. Can you see? Lighter one. And the dorsal is darker. So now, let's move on to the internal anatomy of the earthworm. So before we open and cut the earthworm, the most of the internal organs are located in the anterior portion of the worm. So the anterior portion is going to be the larger part of the earthworm. So this is the head partial portion of the earthworm, where all the organs are located. So we put the dark side up in order to see the organs. And the underside or the belly portion of the worm is the ventral side. So let's pin them. scalpel, we are going to cut slowly and gently the earthworm, the scalpel, and the forceps. So let's spin one at a time in a degree of 30 degrees. Also on the other side of the earthworm. Let's continue to cut. So you can see there is thin membranes which separate each segment. This is what you call the septa. The septa is a clear transverse wall of tissue. So let's open it more down to the anus. There is a septa right here, full of septa. They will need to be severed or to remove so that you can lay the skin out flat. So I'm going to cut those septa to release the skin, but I will cut it carefully to avoid cutting through the intestine. So let's cut it more. So let's observe the thickness of the intestine. So all of this is what you call the intestine. Let's open. As we open the inside of the intestine, we can see some black materials that moves out. So that's now the topsoil. Can you see that one? That is the black material. This is what you call the topsoil. So we are now done dissecting through here. So these are the septa. Now let's go to the top of the earthworm. So now let's cut from the top. Now, let's locate the different internal parts. So right here, in the front is the mouth, which is the opening. And this is the brain, or what you call the dorsal ganglia, right here, which surrounds the anterior end of the pharynx. This paired dorsal ganglia, it acts as the brain of the earthworm. Then down to the pharynx here, then down to the esophagus, So there is a two small yellowish part right here. This is what you call nephridia. These are the kidneys of the earthworm. And right here, you can see the seminal vesicles, which are the organs that store sperms. And let's gently push them away. We can now see the aortic arches or arches. This serves as the heart of the earthworm. This aortic arches or arches, it surrounds the esophagus. And now, let's locate the dorsal blood vessels and the ventral blood vessels. So let's locate the dorsal blood vessels, the ventral blood vessels. So you can see a dark lining here, the dark structure. This is what you call the dorsal blood vessels. The space between the skin and the intestine is what you call the cilium. So this is the dark blood vessels. The cilium is the body cavity that divides into compartments by the septa. And the ventral blood vessels which run longitudinal to the intestine. The white part right here beneath the intestine. So the ventral nerve cord is a longitudinal and it is located on the ventral of the intestine. So the thin walled right here is what? A soft thin walled is what you call the graft. And the hard muscular, you can feel the hard and muscular part is what you call the gizzard. So we all know that earthworm is a hermaphrodite, an organism having both male and female reproductive organs. In the earthworm, the ovaries and testes are difficult to observe. However, we are going to locate the sperm ducts, the seminal receptacles, and the oviducts of the earthworm. So, in segment 15, where the sperm ducts exit the body, and the small white right here where you can find the seminal receptacles. These are located in segment 9 and segment 10, and the oviducts are empty out on the segment 14. So basically, the ovaries and oviducts are beneath the esophagus. They are on the beneath of the esophagus. The ovaries produces eggs. So that's the complexity structure of the earthworm. We managed to determine the different external and internal anatomy of the earthworm. I hope you enjoy watching this video. I hope also you learned something new again today. So I am Sia Minat Rubian, a third-year biology student of Mariano Marquez State University. Thank you and God bless.